much for that lovely introduction. I really appreciate that, and it's so exciting to be here. When you walked in, I handed out some little pieces of paper. If anybody did not get one, I'm going to hand these to the people at the front, and if you could just hand them back to anyone, if you put your hand up and... Great. I couldn't do a talk about creativity without asking you to do something creative. So you all have a little piece of paper with you. I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me here, Kelly, and all of your hard work, Meg, and everybody who has welcomed me so beautifully back to the university campus. It's been really nice to be back here today. I just would like to just begin by mentioning that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples need to be advised that the following presentation may contain images and names and voices of people who have passed. Acknowledgement of country. This is where we are at this point in the beginning of a talk where we really embody what it means to acknowledge country. So I'd like to start by saying that I pay my deepest respects to the elders and custodians of the land on which I walk today and throughout my life. I'm a guest on the unceded lands of the Dharawal peoples right now. I acknowledge the lands of the peoples on which all of us are gathering today, and I respect their ongoing custodianship of these places and honour the elders past, present and future. And this beautiful picture is of Gira on Dharawal country, also known as Mount Kira. And while we're thinking about this acknowledgement, I'd like to invite you to embody that experience of thinking about that space, of acknowledging what it means to be on the country of the Dharawal people. So if you could put your feet flat on the floor, please. And we're just going to take a moment to feel that earth between our feet. We've got building, we've got structures, but under that, there's dirt, there's rock, there's a place that people have walked before us, before the building was here, before all of the structures were here, before colonial changes shifted what was before. And just think about how your feet feel, and just put your hands on your knees for a moment. And I'd like to invite you, if you feel comfortable, to close your eyes and just take a moment to think about the space that you're in, the place that we share right now, together, in this space, on this country, on this beautiful land that was once a land that was only for the Dharawal people and their elders. And now we need to spend a little moment to just honour that and breathe that in. Give your knees a little squeeze if you can. Feel present in that moment. Give your shoulders a little roll if it feels comfortable for you. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And you have a little piece of paper in your hands, everybody now. Now with this piece of paper, I'd like to invite you to fold it in a place that represents where you came from today, how you got here. What's that representative line going to look like? Go ahead and take a line, put a crease in the paper, fold it some way in a symbolic gesture of where you came from to get here. And now I'd like you to fold it again to represent your place in an earlier part of your timeline. It might be last week, it might be last month, it might be last year. What does that journey look like in your mind, in your presence, in your embodied space, and put that into some lines on that piece of paper. Now I'd like to invite you to embed some lines in there from what came before you, before your birth, your parents, their grandparents, their grandparents, 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 and put some lines in there. Where did they come from? Do you know? Maybe you don't. But there was a journey along the way, and those creases will represent that space. Really put that lines right into that paper. And now if you looked at that piece of paper and you unfold it, and now hold it up for everybody else to see it. Hold it up. Have a little look around, everybody, at the different creases. Not one piece of paper in this room is the same. Your journey here is completely different from the person next to you. And we honour that journey because it's part of what you did and how you got there. We're going to think a little bit more about this in a moment when we come back to it. So what I would like to say now is that it is my honour to be here this evening and share with you some of the insights, the learnings, philosophies around creativity and experience of what reciprocity means to me and the shared artistic journeys that have led me to this point. This talk is a yarn. It is a story. Storytelling is at the heart of Indigenous culture. To quote Nonocal man Stephen Page, the creative director of Bangarra Dance, it's in our DNA to use oral stories to carry culture. Aboriginal culture reaches back in a continuous line of knowledge and practice for more than 60,000 years, making Australia home to the oldest living culture on earth. This yarn begins with two questions that are of cultural significance to Aboriginal peoples and are a way to open a conversation that's based on respect and mutual benefit. So, where are you from and who's your mob? That's the first question that we're going to ask today, and I'm going to share a little bit about where I'm from and who my mob is. So this is the Barwon River, Brewarrina Nyemba country at sunset. It's a beautiful place. So creative journeys weave back and forth through time. Just as the lines on your paper represent journeys, they cross, intersect, dissect, they form parallels, create patterns. Journeys are not neat and tidy, and they are certainly not linear, as you can see from your own pieces of paper. My understanding of creativity and art making, I see it in a way that is circular, not linear. And imagine it in circles of dancers, circles of weavers, and circles of academics. So a little bit about my timeline. I left high school in the mid-90s and had a one-track mind for art. It was my dream to be an artist and all I ever wanted in my life. I dove into an associate diploma in visual arts at TAFE. It was raw, fun and immersive. The teachers were passionate about practising artists and every day was a new and exciting art experience. And many a life drawing class was held with a beer in hand at Dicey Riley's pub. During this time, I also discovered belly dancing. To say that this was life-changing is a complete understatement. I'd visited a festival event in the Blue Mountains and I saw some belly dancers performing in an amateur performance, and I was completely struck by this dance. It changed my perspective completely. I had a visceral reaction to what I saw, and within the dance I saw that earthiness, sensuality, strength and power, and it hit me with such a force that I said out loud to my family, I'm going to do that belly dancing and I'm going to be great at it. I found a dance class with the Gypsy Flames led by Cynthia Delaney, and I have danced every day since. That was 26 years ago. In the late 90s, I showed up at the University of Wollongong in my hand-painted Doc Martens and tie-dyed nightie, ready for a double degree in the arts. My happy place was the Creative Arts Painting Studios, and a Bachelor of Arts in English was at the time my fun side game. My appetite for research and reading was immense, and I found myself unexpectedly excelling in literature and cultural studies. I devoured my university courses, and in 5 years from the first day that I stepped into my undergraduate courses at UOW, I graduated with 2 degrees and first-class honours, and was subsequently awarded the prestigious University Medal for the Arts the same year. I was at a crossroads. More study and commit to a life of academia, or head into the real world. A constant sucker for knowledge, I forged ahead and embarked on a doctoral research project straight out of my undergrad degrees and honours, and with the help of a full scholarship in the form of an Australian postgraduate award, I began my PhD. It was 2002, the year I commenced my doctoral thesis. I received a call from my belly dance teacher at the time announcing her retirement. It was a no-brainer. I was ready to launch Cinnamon Twist Belly Dance. I was barely 6 months into a doctoral research project, but I completely ignored all of the voices that said it was too much to start a business and write a thesis at the same time. I pivoted from dedicated dance student to teacher and built the company that has weathered the storm of all of the life changes. A marriage, the success of receiving my doctorate, the birth of my 2 kids. One of them accompanied me in utero as I waddled to the podium to receive my testament. Then a divorce, 2 years of COVID, and today, Cinnamon Twist Belly Dance celebrates 20 years in 2022. So let me tell you a little bit about my story, who I am. I'm a proud Murriwarri woman. My mob are from far northwest New South Wales, Warriner, Wilmaringal. This is my great-grandfather, George Shearer. I was 4 years old in this photo, and I was given the important task of taking grandfather for a walk. It's one of my favourite photos of him and I. Great-grandfather, George Shearer, and his daughter, my grandmother, Auntie Mary Shearer. Great-grandfather was born on Corella Station, Warriner, in 1893, and he died at 91 years old in 1984. I remember him as a laughing, cackling man with the raspiest, scariest laugher, but he was a lovely man and he really enjoyed a good laugh. Granny Shearer. Several years ago, my grandmother, Auntie Mary Shearer, was diagnosed with vascular dementia. In January 2021, I took on the new role, Art and Dementia Coordinator for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander programs at the Museum of Contemporary Art. My role was to investigate the needs and gaps in the museum and gallery sector, and then to develop a program to facilitate and support the community. I'm going to let Granny speak for herself here. This is Granny speaking.
I was born Mary Beryl Shearer. I was born and raised in Murriwarri.
So my creative journey has 3 pivotal points. And writing this talk and coming today was extremely hard in many ways, because bringing together the streams of my creative journey was a tricky one. They seemed not to link, but actually they did link, and they do link. And my creative journey has taken the form that it has for very specific reasons, and the ways that I have moved through that journey has been awesomely fun and also quite complicated. But my journey through Cinnamon Twist I'm going to share with you first, and then talk to you a little bit about what I'm doing at the MCA as Art and Dementia Coordinator for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander programs, and then talk to you a little bit about my own art practice, which is really important to me and has always been there. It ebbs and flows, but it's a space that I feel really comfortable in. Cinnamon Twist School of Belly Dance. It came to me at a time where I was already full of so many other things to think about, but it changed my perspective and it changed the way that I thought about community. When I first began in the dance community in Wollongong, it was quite a dissected community. There was dissent, and there wasn't a unified feeling in that space. And when I started working in that space and created Cinnamon Twist, that was one of my dreams, to create a space where people felt comfortable and warmth and encouragement in that space. So Cinnamon Twist came about. I'm going to play a video to give you a bit of an idea of exactly what happens at Cinnamon Twist. Are you ready? My students who are here know what's coming. So at the time that Cinnamon Twist was starting, and I hope that that really shows you the level of hilarity that ensues in our spaces together. And what I was really interested in when I first began this journey into dance culture in general, but also dance in Wollongong, and then broader into the dance community in Sydney, and then broader than that, the dance community in Australia, was to notice that women's spaces were places where lots of really creative things could happen, and there was a level of safety. Cinnamon Twist invited people from very broad backgrounds and cultural identities, and in that space, I learned that the dance steps were the least of what we were really doing in that space. What we were really doing was creating safer spaces for women to come together and express in ways that they weren't able to always do outside of that studio space. And at times it was a palpable experience to feel people walk into that room and drop away the things that had marred their day, the things that were difficult, the life experiences, the shared spaces, those shared journeys. It was never just about the steps, and I learned that so early on in my journey into Cinnamon Twist belly dance, and the way that I realised very quickly that I was so much more than a dance teacher, that I was a friend, but I was also a confidant, that it was a space where people could actually create and feel alive in a fun kind of way. I think I can't also underestimate the power of being silly. Creating spaces where and you saw that in the video, and of course none of those things are planned. You know, this is us capturing our everyday experiences in the studio of play. And that element of play for adults is something that we often need permission to do, to have a playful space, to come into a space where creativity is something that is allowed in a playful and sometimes silly way. I'm just going to share a couple of photos of our early days. This is some images of our students performing. These would have been back in maybe 2005. And just the joy that happens on stage. Performance is a big part of what we do at Cinnamon Twist, and the way that dancers are able to experience the first time of performing. Lots of people that come into these spaces have never done any dancing before. It's often a space that people come into as on their own, you know. Actually, it's quite rare for students to enrol in groups. Actually, what happens is students will come to me and say, I'm looking for something new, I'm looking for something different. I asked many people over the years why they chose to do belly dancing, and the answers were really far apart. There were lots of different reasons, but rarely was it just to learn some dance steps. It was nearly always about connection. Connection to a community, connection to a creative side they felt they didn't have, a way to get some space from family, from children, from the stresses of their lives. It was an escape in many ways to move away from the spaces that felt quite difficult at times. And the stage created that level of excitement too, you know. There's something in that stress of being put on the spot that makes you feel quite alive. My students in the middle there will attest to this, I'm sure. That energy of creating that feeling of tension and stress, which is something I will return to a little bit later on in my work around art and dementia, because that is a particularly important part of maintaining brain elasticity, and feeling that little bit of challenge is what continues to make us feel like we can connect in that way and maintain brain health. So I thought I'd throw this one in because this was at the university campus. I think this was a couple of years ago, performing at one of the UOW Pulse events. And belly dancing has taken me all around the world. This particular performance was in Dubai, at the International Dubai Festival, and that was a really exciting opportunity to take there. Wollongong Belly Dance Festival was a progression that happened in 2011. The first Wollongong Belly Dance Festival was staged. It was a 3-day event that included performances, workshops, and surprisingly, it attracted hundreds and hundreds of people from around the country. I was really stunned by the support of the larger dance community for what happened with Wollongong Belly Dance Festival. It ran for another 5 years, every second year, and eventually grew beyond what I would ever have imagined and became an international belly dance festival right here in Wollongong. I'm going to play you a little video in a moment, but I just wanted to also mention here that when COVID happened, it really, stressed everyone out, right? It really changed the way that we were able to engage in that in-person space. So what happens to a dance company and a dance space and a dance school when the reason that you're going is to create those connections and feel that space that feels like you can connect with other people and you don't get to go out? We took our classes online for 2 full years. So we didn't do any in-studio classes for those 2 years. And it really was a challenge. It was a challenge from my perspective as director of the company, but it was a challenge for the students too. But they stuck with it. Students continued to come. The classes were still active online in that online space. And what I really discovered was that being in person, even though that's great, there was so much more to it that it was able to withstand even the stresses of COVID. When lots of dance schools didn't make it, we were very fortunate to continue through that period. During that time, what we did though is we pivoted, we changed, we grew. We didn't just let these things be stressful and not change the way that we made our space creative. And so we did performances in our own lounge rooms, in our kitchens, and there was a project that we did called Zoom Zoom, which I got very excited about when I found a song that was titled Zoom Zoom, and because all of our classes were on Zoom, and all of our students learned the same piece of choreography from their homes, in their spaces, in their UGG boots, and then we got together and we performed these to our own space, and then I edited this together into a video to show that space for performing is still there despite the challenges of COVID. I'll share that with you now.
Zoom, 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 comme Diego dans la bombonera. Comme Savastano dans la Scampia. On vient rentrer dans la leyenda. Ah, c'est zoom, zoom, zoom. Comme Diego dans la bombonera. Comme Savastano dans la Scampia. On vient rentrer dans la leyenda.
J'ai tout pris dans la bijouterie, j'ai pas laissé mon ADN. Ne demande pas le juste prix, le bail c'est de la frappe, tu paies. Evry c'est méchant, méchant, méchant comme un zéro Chicago. Platin au plomb, tous les jours je vais péter le mago. J'ai toujours un flingue dans la wagon. Bye bye, bye. Chiant, vita, vexo, bras toi, t'es dans l'ombre.
La cité, la cité.
Chiant, quand les flics au pattes, on a dit mon nom.
La cité, la cité.
Toto, Rina, c'est pequeño.
Au Brasilia.
Fodes, caray, hombre, chico.
Cocaïna. Ah. Jamais on trahira la Honda. Pour de l'oseille ou bien des nanas. Jamais on trahira la Honda.
Zoom, zoom, zoom. Comme Diego dans la bombonera. Comme Savastano dans la Scampia. On vient rentrer dans la leyenda. Ah, c'est zoom, zoom, zoom. Comme Diego dans la bombonera. Comme Savastano dans la Scampia. On vient rentrer dans la leyenda.
Et c'est la zone qui a fait Charou et Mbaba. Et c'est la zone qui a fait Charou et Mbaba. Et merci la zone. Et merci la zone. Et merci la zone. Et merci la zone. Et c'est la zone qui a fait Charou et Mbaba. Et c'est la zone qui a fait Charou et Mbaba. Et merci la zone. Et merci la zone. Et merci la zone. Et merci la zone.
Ah. Jamais on trahira la Honda. Pour de l'oseille ou bien des nanas. Jamais on trahira la Honda.
Zoom, zoom, zoom. Comme Diego dans la bombonera. Comme Savastano dans la Scampia. On vient rentrer dans la leyenda. Ah, c'est zoom, zoom, zoom. Comme Diego dans la bombonera. Comme Savastano dans la Scampia. On vient rentrer dans la leyenda.
So, one of the things that we really realise when we get to looking at what happens in those spaces and why people continue to come back through the adversity of COVID, through the difficult things, is because of that sense of collaboration and connection and the way that we are continually talking to each other. So those community collaborations don't happen on their own in somebody's lounge room. They have to be part of a bigger conversation about why we continue to connect in this way. This particular performance I'm going to show before I finish up my section on Cinnamon Twist is a performance that we did when we were just itching to get out of the house and we weren't yet able to get back into the studio. And the restrictions were still in place. So we devised this ingenious plan to perform outside for a while. And we came up with a range of different performances that we did in public spaces around Wollongong, which was a lot of fun. And this public art that you see here did get quite a nice audience. So when we performed, we generally had lots of people watching and talking about it. And it was a really great way to explain that connection continued to happen beyond COVID as well. I have deliberately left in here the little parts of us messing around before and after the video. I haven't tidied it up because artistic journeys, remember, are not tidy, and I think it's nice to see the way that we interact together. So have a little look at this. I really enjoy the bloopers. There were so many great ones too that I didn't put in. They can all thank me later for that. But that takes me to the next section of my creative journey, and here we are at Bangawarra Art Yarns for Older and Elder Mob, and this is a program that I run at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Sydney, and I started that 18 months, or almost 2 years ago now. And at the time that the program that I started, there was no program. So there was an art and dementia for everyone that had been running for about 7 years and is a wonderful program and really successful. But the MCA really noticed that audiences of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples were not attending so much to this program, and really wanted to create a space for that. So when I began, there was no program in place, and so it was a real challenge to create that particular space. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight into what that program is all about. So Art Yarns is a free contemporary art program delivered by the MCA. It aims to support the social and emotional well-being of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples living with or at the risk of dementia. It incorporates hands-on creative art-making activities in a culturally safe environment, and it is entirely Aboriginal designed, implemented and delivered. And the program launched an online program in September 2021. So when I started, I pretty much walked in the office and then pretty much went on COVID lockdown fairly straight away. So there was a process in figuring out what to do next, and an online program worked beautifully in that instance. So a little bit about the scope. So the program contributes to filling this gap in current wellbeing services available to those living with dementia in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community. And it provides an engaging and collaborative space to yarn, connect and create. Key to the development of the program is an understanding and a commitment to the principles of self-determination. And the program has, as I said, been entirely developed, led and delivered by Aboriginal staff and artist educators. We acknowledge and are committed to developing and maintaining and respectful relationships with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. And that includes consultation in an informal and formal capacity with the Aboriginal community, stakeholders, the MCA's Aboriginal staff, and advisory committee. I've left a capital letter off there, I apologise, and local and national Aboriginal networks and individuals. So a little bit about statistics, and this is a quick bit, I promise, but it is really important because dementia is nationally recognised as one of the largest growing health concerns across the population in Australia. But dementia prevalence amongst Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples is almost 5 times higher than that of the general population. Dementia also occurs at a significantly younger age of onset in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as compared with the rest of the population. So those statistics are really alarming. That's really, really high. So why is Art Yarns important? An increasing body of literature examines the positive role that art and art galleries play in the facilitation of programs that promote social engagement and inclusion for those living with dementia. So this space of inclusion of people who are living with dementia in the gallery spaces and creative making is something that has been gaining momentum, but it hasn't as yet, until Art Yarns arrived on the scene, been something that was working for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities specifically. So research shows that there is a gap in contemporary arts programming that engages and supports older Aboriginal Australians who are currently living with dementia or at risk of developing the disease. And Art Yarn considers the important role that art making and yarning in culturally safer, closed environments may play in supporting wellbeing, particularly when connections to culture, country, kinship, knowledge systems and beliefs are strengthened. So it's important to note that Art Yarns is a closed space, and that is something that's really important to that Art Yarns philosophy of creating a safe environment. So ageing well. From the perspectives of older Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, connecting to culture and country and sharing cultural values and knowledges with younger generations are critical to ageing well. Cultural connection through art practice and storytelling has many advantages and potential benefits in the context of dementia care and in supporting older Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as they contribute to the health and well-being of the whole community. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what is involved in an Art Yarns program. So the Art Yarns program is really focused on the space of yarning and making at the same time. And I say it in that order for a reason, because it's not about teaching people how to do art. That's the first thing that is really important to note with this particular program, and what it's trying to do is that it's not so much about teaching art making, it's about creating connections through contemporary art to create that culturally safe space to allow for a sense of well-being and connection in that area. So one of the things that happened when I started working with the idea of creating Art Yarns, and I was very fortunate that the MCA really gave me the reins with this and allowed me to spend time working out the best way to do this without too much push and direction. And one of the things that came about through my understanding of what was happening is that there was not a lot of talk about dementia within Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, and that there is quite a strong sense of stigma around that. And so with that, there was a difficult task of creating an art and dementia program for a community that really didn't want to talk about it, or didn't know how to talk about it, or it wasn't a conversation that was happening. And some of the aunties shared with me at different times in our programs that there was no words for dementia in their languages. So that really kind of gives you an insight into what this means and how the discussion about dementia needs to be approached in a really sensitive and culturally appropriate way to be able to do that. So one of the things I did to begin with is not talk about it at all, because if we are thinking about how ageing well and this idea of cultural healthiness is something that can happen from connection and creating spaces that feel good and feel happy and feel warm, but also acknowledging the hard parts. This is where we come back to what happened with Cinnamon Twist, where it wasn't just about flattening out what was happening in our lives. There was a lot of sharing going on, and the difficult parts of our lives do come into the well-being spaces, because that's how we deal with the things that are difficult and the traumas that we have. So none of those things with the program are shut down. They are very much part of that, and acknowledging trauma is a very, very big part of ageing well in art and dementia programs. So every single program starts with introductions, a cuppa and morning tea. The moment where it's, who's your mob and where you're from. Those are the things that begin each of the Art Yarn sessions before anything else happens. An acknowledgement of country is an embodied experience, a little bit like what I did with you earlier at the beginning of my talk, to really create a space where we can acknowledge in an embodied sense. Embodied creative making is something that I have done throughout my time at Cinnamon Twist, and naturally that fed into the way that I have thought about this space. Participants in this instance were asked to use water to make marks on magic watercloth in an extended acknowledgement of country. And in this particular program at Curranulla Aboriginal Corporation, we acknowledge Dharawal country on the land where Curranulla is situated. If you haven't seen this magic water paper, it's pretty cool. It's really fun. It's a large piece of fabric that is often used for students of calligraphy who are learning to do calligraphy or different types of writing, and it marks when you put water on it, and it comes up black with water, and then it fades and you can reuse it. So I brought this in our first session, and it was decided immediately that I had to bring it every single session because it's just so much fun to use. But that space of creating an embodied acknowledgement is part of every program. Yarning and stories. This talk started with the idea of a yarn and continues throughout everything that I do. Place, stories, both personal and cultural, family, country, connection, and the themes of country. This is an example of water, but we would also think about, animals, plants, the ways that we consider the air, the stories, the sky, everything that is part of that place-making cultural connections. Themes like that are part of what we do throughout the sessions. So they run over 4 to 5 weeks at each place. When I first began in this space with art yarns, when I first began, I realised that it was going to be a huge challenge to have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community come into the MCA. It can be quite a daunting building. It's a very imposing place and doesn't particularly seem that inviting to some community members. And so it was decided throughout my early stages of planning that art yarns would be taken to different communities that were already participating in elders groups, where elders and older mob were already meeting and had a connection and had that bond before I got there. And so that really worked very, very well and is something that has continued to happen. The MCA hasn't hosted an art yarns program yet, and I feel like it's a slow process. I think that slow engagement and doing the proper way of engaging culturally with the groups is working in a way that feels more comfortable for everyone. So the art making can be all kinds of things. I gave you an example of what we might do with a bit of paper. We can use tissue paper, watercolours, textures, paper, and introduce different items to the groups. In this particular group, the participants were all given a sketchbook to use, and that was encouraged to be part of their art making if they wanted to do that at home as well. And the first activity was to personalise their books with a painting. I love this artwork that this participant created. So here is some of the group creating some images on their books to build that personal identity into their own art. Now this, okay, I hope there aren't any Rabbitohs supporters here. If there are, I apologise. One thing that I've learned with art yarns that I really must rectify, I know nothing about football. Nothing. And I feel like maybe it makes me a little unqualified for the job at times, because this particular auntie decided that her team, I'm assuming is the Shark, was going to maul the Rabbit. And throughout this program, this particular session, the rest of the aunties were all complaining because the Rabbitohs were their team, and there was a lot of arguing going on here. So the more argument happened, the more blood started to get added to the drawing. So on my must-do is to learn something about football, because I know absolutely nothing. We had a wonderful artist, Jasmine Sarin, who's a local to Dharawal country, join us. Thank goodness she knew about, because she helped me out immensely. So this is a really important part of the next part of the Art Yarns program, is to create a collaborative artwork. So every session, that is a significant part of what we do. So the last couple of weeks, the participants are all invited to share particular images or symbols into an artwork that everybody contributes to. And through this, it's about talking about what they are doing and why. And it could be a zigzag, as you can see, you know, or a line that had significance to the individuals, in the same way that the creases on the paper, you put them there because they meant something to you. In the same way, the participants are adding to this work. And then following this moment of creating these symbols to build that understanding of who they are and where they've come from and their creative journeys, then it is created into this incredible artwork that then is gifted back to the Coronella Aboriginal Corporation, and then they kept that on their wall. So that idea of reciprocity is integral to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural practice and the way that knowledges are built and relationships are supported is through reciprocity and connection and maintaining those kinds of relationships. So we came in, we created this space, we did this collaborative artwork, and then they continued to live on in that space with them. They were so happy with this. It was, you can see on their faces how absolutely thrilled they were to see the final piece all ready to go up. So that giving back is a very important part of the creative making practice period. So let's talk about my art a little bit. So this is my passion is the beautiful flying foxes that we have all around us on Dharawal country. If you haven't noticed them, you need to look a bit harder. They fly everywhere. You've all seen them, I'm sure. I really enjoyed the way that throughout the COVID lockdowns, they continued to just do their thing and fly around. So a lot of my work from the last couple of years are about looking out the window and seeing these bats moving around their space. So I am a weaver, and I have spent the last couple of years honing that skill. And I'd like to also share that as I've learned more about weaving as part of my connection to my Aboriginal identity, I've looked back beyond this journey of how I got here. You know, I picked up weaving fairly quickly, but with this, I've also acknowledged that the practice of sewing has been part of my life since I was very, very little, watching my mum sew. She's down here somewhere. Where is she? She's gone out for a little bit. So watching my mum sew and being in her sewing room and really taking in what she does and watching and learning by watching is a continuation of that practice of passing on knowledges, and then that transference when I sat on the Barwon River and learned some weaving and just stuck at it until I got better and better. And these are the creations that I'm currently working on. So I make woven flying foxes that have little wire feet that can hang on objects. And I've really enjoyed the collaborative nature of this particular artwork style, because when when people have bought these objects, they participate in the finding of a stick on country, which is really special. And I often have had people send me photos of the lovely display stick that they have engaged in. So it's much more than that transactional nature of creating an art, selling it, people give you money and then you give them the object. It's so much more than that, because there's this engagement beyond the transaction, and that's what fascinates me, both with my dance, with what I do with art yarns, and my art practice. All have that. There is a unified attempt to create collaborative spaces that feel socially engaged. This is an artwork, Dinawan, the emu on the Barwon River, and that is some of my drawing practice with the weaving over. So this particular spaces that I've created is called Weaving Connections, and in this space, participants are invited to learn in a collaborative way. Both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people are invited to come together to learn some weaving practice, and then in that process, then they are invited to add their piece back to this piece of art that is then donated back to the space where we have created that particular artwork. So the concourse at Chatswood, Blacktown Arts Centre, and there's one more, it's gone out of my head. Anushka might remember. It's the other one. Abstract Thoughts. Thank you. Abstract Thoughts, that's the other one. So there are a number of projects that have run Weaving Connections, and I'm really excited and passionate about that particular kind of socially engaged art making. Here's a little fun video just to show you the runaround that happens during a Weaving Connections. It's got no sound. But I would just like to say thank you, everyone, for listening to my talk. But before you applaud and tell me how wonderful you feel about all of this, I'm going to ask you to belly dance with me. Yes, I am. So I'm going to ask you, I think you can still hear me, right? You can still hear me? I'm going to ask everybody to stand up if you would like to. If you'd like to. Very nice. Very good. So we are going to learn a little bit of belly dancing. So the basics, we're going to have our feet nice and flat here. Nobody fall off there. I'm not sure what the insurance covers. Little bend in the knees. Now, one of the things I love about belly dancing is that it's a grounded dance form. It takes us really close to the earth, so we want to keep our knees bent so that we create that bounciness through the hips. You're going to put your arms out if you've got a little room there between you and the person near you. Yeah, that's it. Spread out. That's right. I like this. Nice. Very good. Excellent. And I'm just going to show you a couple of steps before I put some music on. So from here, let's do a little push with the hips out to the side. So what we're doing here is we're isolating through that hip. So you're going to think about your head staying centered and still in the middle, and your hips are moving out and away from that. So you've got your hips like a pendulum, and there's a heaviness to it. So as you move, there's a real conscious feeling of weight through that hip. Yes, very good. Look at that. You're all born to belly dance. Very good. So let's take it into what we're going to call a figure eight. So if we imagine an infinity symbol, you're going to take it out and around to the side, and then you're going to take it out and around to the side on the other side. So you've got a little loop, and then a loop, and then a loop, and then loose. Get a little bit loose. You had a whine already? That's it. Very good. Very good, very good. Excellent. All right, now we're going to put one foot up. Pick a foot, any foot, I don't mind. Very good. We're going to use the hip now. So you're going to push the hip up and away forward towards me, and then you're going to bring it back down again. So this is a really weighted dance step. So when I say weighted, I mean you're really going to feel your weight on the back leg. Yes, it's really good for your glutes. Here we go. Take it up and down and up and down. Beautiful. Up and down. Up and down. Yeah, good. Very nice. Let's go back to that little figure eight, the infinity symbol. Let's try it. Very good. You're dancing. Can we turn it up, Meg? How do we turn it up? So we're going to get that little hip movement. Very good. All right, we're going to get some heavy hips now. Are you ready? We're going to use this hip. Drop it down. Really drop, 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 and drop. Good, everyone. Excellent. Very good. Can you switch hips? Other side. Oh, very nice. All right. We're going to double time. Are you ready? Twice as fast. Drop, 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 drop. Other side. Drop, 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 drop. Oh, very good. Drop, 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 drop. Okay, can I have a shoulder roll? Roll it, roll it. Very good. Can you twist? Yes, you can. Twist, 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 twist. Very good. Okay, I'm going to teach you a little shimmy. We're going to shake it. You're going to use your knees. Your knees are going to go tuck, 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 tuck. Ready? Shake. Oh, yeah. Back and forth. Can you take it to the side? Can you take it to the other side? All right, you ready? We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Other side. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Other side. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, other side, and 1, and 2, and 3. We're going to do a little circle. Keep it going. Oh yeah, that's it. Very good. Shoulders. And let's shimmy. Well done, everyone. Very good. You can take a seat. Now, before we finish up, I've got one more thing to teach you, and that is a zagarit sound. This is a celebration sound. My students who are here are going to help us out with this. You're going to take your hand under your nose and you're going to go la, 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 la. But you're going to do it really loud and really high pitched so you can hear it in all the other theatres. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. That was really good. That was really good. Thank you, everyone. And just finally, to just sum everything up here, just to say that the story that I've told you is the value of creativity, the strength of community, the importance of shared creativity. I'm a Murriwarri woman, a mother, a sister, a daughter, a granddaughter. I'm an artist, a dancer, a storyteller, a thinker, a teacher, and always a learner. Thank you, everyone.